Farage, what kind of protest is planned for Friday in Westminster?
Well, Friday's a march that started off in Sunderland a couple of weeks ago, and 50 of them, core marchers, have worked their way all the way down the country. It was a march for Brexit, and when we originally set it up, we didn't know, were they coming into Parliament Square at a moment of great celebration? The day that we've been promised over 100 times by the Prime Minister will be the day where we freed ourselves from the European Union and became an independent country. That, I'm afraid, is not what it's about. It'll be a march and a rally with crowd, speakers, to mark what is a day of great national betrayal. And in my view, there is no other way of looking at this. We voted for this in a referendum. We were promised it'd be implemented. We voted for this in a general election, being promised it would be implemented. And then 498 MPs voted for Article 50, which said at 11 p.m. on the 29th of March, we would leave with or without an agreement. And that, I'm afraid, has now been kicked down the road.
What kind of spectacle can we expect then? You know, is it a bit of an anticlimax that it's not the Leave day?
It's a huge disappointment. I think an anticlimax is like a letdown. This isn't a letdown. No. We don't feel let down. We feel angry. We feel very, very angry at what has been done by our government, what has been done by our Prime Minister, and indeed many of our MPs. And we will vow that day in the square that we will fight whatever battles we've got coming with renewed vigour. Because the one thing that's really interesting is, despite the fact that Parliament has done its best to water down Brexit, delay Brexit, even in some cases stop Brexit, public opinion now is absolutely more solidly for Brexit than it's ever been at any point in this. So if they think they can just walk all over us, well, we're marching back from Sunderland to tell them they won't get away with it.
Why didn't you take part the length and breadth of the Leavers March? Why aren't you out there now walking the length of Britain as you supported those that are doing the march, but you're not on it?
Well, it just sort of happens I'm a group leader in the European Parliament. I had a European summit to go to, and I'm talking to Mr. Juncker tomorrow morning in the European Parliament. It's about priorities. I have done a few days of the march. I've loved it. As some of the press reported, Mr. Farage is a bit fitter than he looks. So I'd love to have done it, but it's a question of priorities.
So it's down the list of priorities then, it's not the number one?
Well, the number one priority is to make sure we get Brexit. And there are times when, actually, being just about the only British politician, Eurosceptic politician, at the European summit was perhaps quite useful for our side.
The numbers has been obviously talked about, the number of people that are on that march compared to the Remain march of 1 million people in London.
Oh, I'm sorry.
How do you justify that balance?
Well, we've got 50 marchers, but they're marching on behalf of 17.4 million. I think that's really the point. As for the London, amazing, isn't it? The new Labour spin machine is back up and running. They say 1 million people march, you say 1 million people march. Any computer mapping will tell you it was a third of that number. Now, that's not to say that it wasn't a very large number of people who have been encouraged by many in our professional business classes and political classes to try to overturn a democratic result. And I am worried about that. I'm worried about that trend in British politics. But I'm even more worried by the fact that they just seem to lie the whole time and you guys buy into it.
A final question. I mean, I would say, of course, that those were the official figures put out by the police. But in any case, we're not leaving on the 29th of March. Where are we headed? What's your reading of the situation?
We're not leaving on the 29th of March. That of itself is a great betrayal. We have an extension to the 12th of April to pass what, again, the press call Mrs May's deal. It's not a deal. It's a new European treaty. It's a legally binding international treaty. We're being asked to leave one treaty for another treaty, and arguably the new one's even worse than the previous one. It isn't going to pass. It isn't getting through the House of Commons. Much as I, like well over half the country now, want a WTO Brexit, I don't believe this Prime Minister will ever give it to us. So I think we're headed for an extension. Whether that's 1 year or 2 years, I don't know. But I will say this. I would much rather have an extension and a chance to press the reset button to get a new Prime Minister and start again than to accept a treaty that would lead to years of misery.
Just a final question then. If you're expecting a long extension, European elections, you're going to stand in that? What kind of result will we expect?
Oh, I will lead the Brexit Party into those European elections. The very fact we're contesting them is a symbol of a failure of our leaders to honour their promises. Look, predictions are a dangerous game. All I would say is 5 years ago, I led UKIP and we won the elections. You know, the first time for over 100 years that a party that wasn't one of the main two had won a national election. I think the prospects this time are as good, if not even better.